Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Listen, it is evident from the comments from the last Virginia Boogaloo video that a lot of you have misinterpretations of history and a lot of you misinterpreted the video that I put on. Perhaps I didn't do a good enough job of explaining myself, or maybe you're just, you didn't pay close attention. So I'm going to try this again and we're going to get some things right and we're going to move on from there. So you guys hang on just a minute, we'll get right to it.
You heard a while, but that's just what people do. The theory is you always find somebody new. I guess there was a time I believe that was true, but now...
Okay, so welcome back. Listen, there are a lot of things that need to be addressed about the last video, I guess. Comments that were made are telling me that there are misinterpretations of what I was trying to get to. And there are some misunderstandings about the way things in the world really did work, and we're going to get to that too in just a few minutes, but we're going to start out by answering some of the statements and questions made in the comment section in the last video. And the first of those is, I was asked what my background is. Well, first I want to ask you why that matters. Why does my background have any influence on the topic at hand? The topic at hand is, you know, how government works and how government has worked historically, so what we can likely expect to come. It has nothing to do with who I am or what I think. It's just how things are. So, but to answer your question, first, I am a proud cancer survivor, and I don't mean like itty-bitty cancer. I mean, I was given 4 years to live 7 years ago. I had stage 4 advanced colorectal terminal cancer. And they removed my colon. I have a colostomy bag now, so I actually could be sitting here pooping and you wouldn't know it. Too much information, right? And that's just how it is. So yes, I've survived cancer recently, and that's why my videos come in, you know, such a sporadic nature. Every once in a while, I'll spend a lot of time at the doctor's offices or in the hospitals or whatever, because I have a lot of residual health issues from, you know, 10.5 months of heavy metal chemo. Platinum-based chemo. So yeah, I took a beating and now my neurological system is all jacked up from it. So you'll notice I'm a little twitchy and all that. That's because the chemo attacked my nervous system and I have problems from that. But that doesn't change the way I think, as far as I can tell. So anyway, I am a Virginian. I do not live in Virginia. I left Virginia 30-ish years ago. But I did go to high school in Virginia Beach. And I grew up in, you know, the Norfolk and Virginia Beach area. I was born in Portsmouth, so you know just enough about me to probably figure out who I am, but I'd rather you just not bother, because it doesn't matter who I am. I'll say this, my family founded Virginia. 400 plus years ago, my family founded Virginia. They were one of the first families to set foot from Europe in Virginia. And they stayed there and still are there. And I have a lot of family there. So, I mean, what's happening in Virginia matters to me as much as it does anybody, okay? A good part of my family still lives up there in the freezing cold Virginia. It's December 20, I don't know, something here. And I'm only in the long sleeves because of the mosquitoes, not because it's cold. It's actually warm out here. So anyway, moving on. That's enough to know about me. So one of the misinterpretations about all of that last video was that, you know, it seems like you think that I was saying that Virginians aren't going to stand up against the government. That's not what I was saying. What I was saying was that the government is not likely to do it the way you think it is. So there will be less of a trigger. That is, you know, if the government is not kicking in doors and taking guns from people, what's going to start the Boogaloo? How's it going to start? You know, so they pass laws, and like I said in the last video, they generally, you know, historically, they don't pass a law and then rush out and take everybody's guns. They pass a law, and then that makes people criminals, and over time, they start catching people with the guns. So, you know, the idea that it's going to start because the government's going to pass laws and then come kicking in doors and everybody's going to fight back, I don't believe that's how that's going to work. That's not how it has ever worked. I believe that they're going to slowly take the guns methodically in such a way that there's no specific trigger for you to defend your rights. That is, going back to what I said before, when the bump stock ban was initiated, nobody came to my house to get mine. You know, nobody called me. Nobody said, hey, you're not allowed to have that, other than, you know, I got a letter in the mail from the government saying that if I still had it, I was a criminal and I had to turn it into the government. And that's probably about the extent of it. I'm not going to, who am I going to fight? Who am I going to shoot at for not coming to get my guns, even though they've made it illegal, right? So who are you going to shoot at if nobody comes to your house looking for your guns? That's the point I'm making. How does a war start when the first shot is never fired? How does that happen? That's what I was trying to get to. That's not to say that we're not going to get to that point. I am 100% sure that the United States will dissolve into chaos and will fall apart in a true civil war. But I'm just saying that the way you think it might happen with the Virginia gun laws being the trigger, I wouldn't count on that. I think there's going to be other influences that are going to matter first. Either a terrorist attack or just an economical, you know, disaster. Something like that, yes, that will be the you know, Archduke Ferdinand moment that causes this impending war to break out. But it's not like you think it is. Sorry. Now, the next thing that needs to be addressed. I have heard you, and I have even said it myself. You know, somebody would say, oh, well, you know, a bunch of citizens don't have a chance against the government. And I'd say, well, you know, you're not thinking about the things that have happened in places like Afghanistan and Vietnam and, you know, the U.S. Revolution and the Civil War. You know, citizens do have a chance against the government. Well, there's a caveat to that, and that caveat is really important. The question you have to ask yourself is, where are your logistics, right? Because you and I both, look, if you could see what was on the other side of that camera, you would be like, oh, hell yeah, we're ready for war. This guy's got it. Yeah, I'm prepared for war, even though I can't walk. I'm prepared for war. I have everything I would need to fight a war, except for the logistics, which I kind of do have organized a certain level of it, and I'm sure everybody has some small level of logistics figured out, but you have to understand, you know, go to the Civil War. Actually, no, we'll start with the Revolutionary War, right? A bunch of farmers took on the biggest country in the world and won. That's the narrative that we all like to play, but the reality of the Revolutionary War was that with, you know, until France got involved, the farmers were losing. We were losing every battle. We were not doing well. We may have won a battle or two in a loose sense of winning, but you know, we were not going to defeat England as a bunch of farmers rising up. That's not how that worked out. The influence of, you know, the French government and French supplies, and suddenly now we had ships bringing in food and water and goods and ammo and gunpowder and all the things that we needed to continue the war. That's what saved us. Otherwise, we would still be part of England. Go to the Civil War. You know, the Civil War, a lot of people seem to think that and wait, back up. I don't call it a civil war in any other context. I'm only calling it that because you all think that it was a civil war. You've been taught that it was. It was not a civil war. It was a whole different... We'll argue that another day. The point is, what we call the U.S. Civil War was fought in other countries, too. Did you know that? Did you know there was actually a battle of the U.S. Civil War in France? France. You see, other countries, as I've said in my other videos, have an influence and have, you know, they have something to lose here. If the U.S. falls into civil war, the world has something to lose. So everyone's going to get involved. So unless you have somebody like France who's going to come help you fight this civil war, you're not going to last 5 minutes. It's not going to do very well at all. Fighting with my microphone. So, you know, this illusion that you're going to just, you know, hey, I'm armed to the teeth, I'm going to win this war because I can fight. Fighting doesn't win wars. Logistics wins wars. I know if you've never served in the military, you probably don't understand what that really means. And even if you have served in the military as a grunt, it's possible that you don't understand. But if you've ever worked in, you know, combat support, if you've ever had like a combat support MOS, you see how important all of the other things the support MOSs are. And that's, who is that? Who is that in your little scenario? When you draw your little imaginary picture of how this war is going to go, you know, you have picked out all your fighters, right? You have all your grunts. Who's your support MOS? Who's going to be, you know, driving the trucks and driving the trains and loading all the equipment and unloading the equipment and dragging the equipment to the lines and manufacturing the ammunition and the gunpowder and the guns and all the things you're going to need, and supplying the food and the water and the toiletries and all the things that you have to have, the medicine. You know, there's so many things that are going to have to go into this that, you know, okay, you're ready to fight, but are you ready to win? Fighting is not winning. So that's something that needs to be considered. I'm not saying it can't be put into place, and I'm not saying there aren't entities who aren't stacked up ready to put that into place. There are, and you need to watch my other videos to see who those entities are at this point in time. That is always subject to change. So yeah, there's something that you probably haven't really considered. Maybe you have, and maybe you just blew it off. I don't know, but based on what I'm seeing in my comments, I don't think a lot of people have really thought this through, and even though you think you have, you haven't. So if we go on to, well, you know, look what we did in Vietnam, you know, or look at what the Vietnamese did to us. They you know, put a hurting on us. We did not lose the Vietnam War. We forfeited because of political expediency. If you look at the numbers from, you know, U.S. troops to everybody else, that, you know, all the combatants that we fought with in the Vietnam War, we devastated them. And I don't want to be those guys. I don't want to be the farmers in the Vietnam War who fought against the U.S. military because they got their asses handed to them all the time. They were persistent and they kept fighting, but they were destroyed consistently. Like, it was bad. And they didn't do it alone. Guess what they had? Logistics. The only reason they lasted as long as they did, and the only reason they could outlast us, was because they had China and the Soviet Union supplying them with weapons, supplying them with command, supplying them with communications, creating channels of supplies, you know, in and out of the northern Vietnamese. They were getting a lot of things from outside. They didn't fight the war. It wasn't us against North Vietnam. It was us against China and the USSR in Vietnam. That's the way that war broke out. So you can't even compare that one. So, you know, the US Revolution, the Civil War, the Vietnamese War. Now we go to Afghanistan. We look at what's going on in Afghanistan. If you have read the Afghanistan papers, you realize that we weren't there to win. We were there to fight. And if you don't, then think about it for a minute. You probably figure it out. So you can't just, you can't look at any of those and say, yeah, you know, these little people stood up against the big people. The little people didn't do it alone, ever. No little people have ever stood up against the government by themselves and won. So if your plan is for a Boogaloo, then your plan better include some sort of supply chain, some sort of logistics, and something you can count on, something you can trust, some sort of outside help. Until you have that, you know, we may get skirmishes. We may see things like Ruby Ridge and the Branch Davidians and you know, what happened out in, what is it, Washington, I think it was. You know, all these different little skirmishes. But at the end, did they win or did the U.S. government win, right? Who won Ruby Ridge? Well, it's pretty obvious. Who won the Branch Davidian, you know, conflict? Yeah, you know, standing up against them is great, but you're gonna die if you're not prepared. And I don't mean militarily prepared. I mean logistically prepared. So think that through. Don't make fun of me and call me a coward. Dude, there's nobody who's ever met me and who's ever served with me who has ever even, you know, been a part of my life who would ever think of me as a coward. That's the last thing anybody would ever call me. I'm a lot of things, but that ain't one of them. And this isn't even about me, because I'm not up there in Virginia dealing with this right now. But if I were in Virginia dealing with this right now, I'd be trying to handle it politically. I would trying to be, you know, getting into the hearts and minds of your opposition, winning hearts and minds, because that's where your war is today. When civil war breaks out, you can stop working on the hearts and minds to a certain degree. But for the moment, stop trying to, you know, let's not escalate this into war. Let's escalate this into a massive political movement where, you know, society can continue. You can continue having everything you have, and we can start reversing the intrusions on our natural rights. Yes, Virginia is intruding on the natural rights of people, as has the federal government for, you know, since the 30s, you know, since NFA laws were accepted. Those are all intrusions on your rights. Hey, there are a lot of things that you support that are intrusions on people's rights, and you just won't accept that because you don't see it that way. Watch all my videos. You'll find out that you are not the constitutionalist you think you are, because you have a concept of what it means and you stick to it, and that's all there is to it, and you're right and everybody else is wrong, and you won't listen because you haven't read enough of what it really means. Yeah, I know. I've done it again. I have butt hurt everybody. That's what I'm here for. Not really. I'm here to get you thinking, to get you to argue with me so that you will do the research and look for the information and find out the truth. Because my God, we need more truth in this world, right? We need more reality. We need to accept the things that we do not like. We need to embrace a reality that we cannot change. Okay? So, look, if you guys want to get into the fun stuff, the imaginary, you know, the actual war side, the logistics side of a civil war that might happen in Virginia, let me know. We'll do it. We'll talk about the things that could be done and how you could actually win this, right? We can talk that through, and we can think that through, and we can have that discussion when that time comes. But for right now, I prefer you think about this politically. You're doing a good job. You're doing a good job. The politics are swaying quickly, and I'm proud of you. I'm very proud of all my Virginia people for standing up and not backing down. But don't get carried away. Don't turn this into something that you don't want to do. Thanks a lot, guys, for watching. I will see you in my next video. I don't know how long it's going to be because Christmas is coming up and, well, things get pretty hairy. So you guys take care. I love you.
You heard a while, but that's just what people do. The theory is you always find somebody new. I guess there was a